Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once more to Feet on the Street, neighbor to neighbor, person to person, moment to moment, unscripted, unedited, and this is what you get because we are a community of people of substance and value. So we are glad you are here, and we are joined this evening by my co-host, Mr. Phil St. Jean.
Hi guys, how are ya?
And also our distinguished guest,
Our special
Mr.
guest.
Kevin Hunter.
Nice to be here.
So welcome. Hope you enjoy the show. And if you have any feedback, please contact us at feetofthestreet@hotmail.com.
I was going to ask that question because I had a gal ask me where can they send questions.
Well, I mean, aside from YouTube and Facebook, which Candace over here, Candace Benton, and Laurel, we've got some people in the background that actually help us put this thing together, and they are all valued spirits because
Awesome.
we are community.
We are.
And win or lose.
It is great, though, from a person who's made a living out of online content and visibility. It's great if your listeners and viewers put their comments on the video on YouTube, because it helps its searchability.
Wow.
Take Kevin's advice.
Bam! He's an
Put your
RT guy
questions
now.
there, you bet.
You're an RT guy now.
I do need to take a moment, Kevin, before I get to you. We have several followers from, well, Dane from Germany.
Really?
Yes,
Listen.
Dane.
Hi, Dane.
Oh gosh, now I just had
Rachel?
a brain fart. But,
Rachel?
you know, Rachel,
Rachel.
yes, and
Rachel.
Escondido, California. And,
How you doing?
hey, baby. We shake it up. Anyway, to all of you, I won't list all the different names, but thank you so much for following us.
Yes.
It's been a joyous 9 years, and without you, we'd have no reason to do this, but we'd probably do it anyway.
Yeah, because we enjoy it. Because there's something to do on Tuesday night.
But let's revert
Let's
to
revert.
Kevin. Kevin, you do internet radio.
Yes, I do.
Tell us about it.
Well, as I shared with you before we got on air, I got started in daytime radio, which everybody's familiar with. And I actually started with a show that was mine. I didn't go to work for any other radio station. I went to go broadcast a show that was mine. And I don't think in today's world, and perhaps even when I started this in 1999, that people would be necessarily successful doing it how I did it. So I'm not necessarily recommending that. But I just went to a station that I knew had good coverage and a nice big listening audience, and I said, here's what I'd like to do. And I think still today, the reason why they wanted to talk to me, and I had no clue at that time, but the reason they wanted to talk to me was because of my voice. And
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, and the next morning, or not the next morning, but a few days later when I did, they invited me back to do a morning show with their host who had been hosting that show for close to 30-some years.
Wow.
And he shares with me, he gave me, news clips and things like that to read. And then after our morning show was done, it was like from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. And after it was done, he says, I hate you. And I'm like, did I do something wrong? Or, did I offend him in some ways? And he goes, no, it's just that I've been doing this job for 30 years and I've never sounded that good.
Wow.
So anyway, that was my start in radio. But eventually, I don't know if you guys remember when Howard Stern had his show
Of course we
on
did.
daytime radio.
Oh,
Yes.
love it.
Yeah,
Love it.
and had his show out there, but he left a huge network of stations, went to
Everybody
satellite
say-
radio and online radio, and I was like, man, if somebody like Howard Stern is doing this, there must be something to the future of online content. And I'm really glad that I made that decision. Initially, I didn't leave daytime radio right away. I just started taking a lot of my shows that I was producing anyway and putting them also on the web. And it's funny, it wasn't even 18 months before my monthly online following was bigger than all of my stations combined, as far as their total listenership. And I went, I think the online
Cool.
thing is
It's gonna work.
is my bag. So
Sure. That's awesome.
I ran with it.
That is awesome. Your studio is on 14th, is that what you said?
Yeah, right here in Longview, we're at Lynn's right now, so we're just a block over and a block north and on the other side of the road. So
Where K-BAM used to be a long time ago when I was working there, in the basement.
I understand there was a radio station
Yep.
there at one time, and once in a while
Yep.
we hear these ghostly voices of people from the past. No, I'm just kidding, but you know.
Wait a minute, that was me. I worked there.
You did it well.
I did it well.
I mean, a haunting presence.
Great, that's why I want to be doing this.
So if you guys don't mind, I have to actually share with you something that my wife said, Kevin, that is worthy of turning into a video all by itself. I have, to give you a little backstory, between a lot of my lifelong friends, we always give each other a really hard time when it's our birthday. And so somebody here today in Longview, who he said he held me when I was a baby, I'm not, you know, I guess like Richard Nixon, I'm not able to recall the meeting, but anyhow, he said he held me when I was a baby. Anyways.
You were pretty young.
Yeah, so anyway, it's his birthday today, so I sent him a little thing that my wife says, you have to turn this into a video, because she goes, Kevin, that's really great content. So if you don't mind, I'll read it for you real quick.
Be my guest.
Happy birthday, Carl, and if you're listening out there, Carl.
Hi, Carl. Happy birthday.
So far, this is the oldest you've been. The good news is that you've learned by now that the volume button also turns to the left. Anyway, how are you these days? I hope you're able to get a burning permit to light your birthday cake. If nobody shows up for the party, just dial 911. The first responders already know you by first name basis. Anyway, I hope I suppose these days that your back goes out more often than you do, or do you still get over to your archaeologist for your annual checkups?
Wow.
Are they tracking your age, or do they just check the rings on your bathtub? You're probably still mystified how that last MRI brain scan came up empty. What does a fella have to do to pass a test these days? You slept well the night before, soaked in the hot tub to relax, only to go out and find out there's an empty space between your ears. Kinda gives new meaning to Bed, Bath, and Beyond.
Nice. Nice. Nice.
I was going to ask if you'd heard what was going on in town, but then I realized you've been deaf for well over a decade. So, just so you know, things have changed, but now that your elementary school classmates are running the county, things are going to get a lot worse. By now, you're being petitioned to move to Florida. Not that you want to, but apparently it's the law. Have you ever looked at the population down there?
It's old folks.
Life certainly flies by, and like a roll of toilet paper, it goes faster as you get to the end of it. If you're concerned, you might like to know that naps do slow down the aging process, especially if you take them while driving. I want you to know that I was going to send you a gift, but at your age, I can only imagine you don't like the sight of flowers. Anyway, happy birthday, Carl. It's a Stonehenge that few people reach. I would close by calling you Gramps, but as a good friend, I don't want to offend you about your age.
That's cool.
That is very cool. I like it.
So that's my
Kind of a
birthday
Hallmark
gift
moment.
to Carl. Yeah.
Kind of a Hallmark moment.
Yeah. So that's kind of mischief, you know, I've been known to pull on my friends.
Pull more.
Yeah.
Well, we had a chance to talk a couple of weeks ago when we met.
Yeah.
And I want you to explain about the Las Vegas shooting. What you're
You
doing.
want me to explain about the Las Vegas shooting?
Well, you told us about what you were going to do with all the stuff.
Well, let me say what I do know, because there's some elements of this, and as a longtime journalist, for me it's a little irresponsible to share the entire details of what I know until I've done the diligence to establish the facts.
Yeah.
But just let me share with you a couple things that I have done without sharing some of the things that we're in the process of verifying. The Vegas shooting was not a single shooter. That's 100% fact. So just sharing a few of the pieces that I have verified were actually true and accurate. There's a lot of footage that was taken from that shooting episode, and if you listen to them, you hear what the FBI regarded or recalled as being basically echoes of shots that were fired. So the reason why you heard different weapon systems is that it was simply echoing off the building. But
Yeah.
I can tell you, as a former military officer who did range control on the M16 range, on the 9mm range, on the saw gun range, on the 50 cal range, that I'm quite familiar with what the difference in weapon systems sound. and also the fact that they all have their own cadence. So one of the pieces of evidence that I put together was collecting these files, was actually running them through my sound software that I use in my studio for recording all the time. It shows the voice inflection when you're speaking.
Oh, cool.
And I could take that shooting and put it in there and measure the milliseconds between the shots fired as far as their cadence is concerned. And one of them is really super obvious, that it's two weapon systems going off at the same time, because you hear this, and then all of a sudden in the background there's this like, bah, 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 bah. It's not even, first of all, the sound isn't the same, and if somebody wanted to say, this much louder, more pronounced sound was the echo of that little crackle you heard in the background, that's a hard argument to make. But then when you take the two shots and put them into software, you see that the cadence is different too. So an echo of a shot, if I fired off 3 shots and you heard the echo, they'll be in the same cadence the original shots were shot. So there's a lot of evidence that there was more than one shooter, and there was shooting happening in multiple places in Vegas too. So
Are you talking about different places than where you showed it?
different places than the Mandalay.
So we had different shootings going on.
I don't mind sharing that I have seen evidence of which I say we're going through and verifying, but I have seen credible evidence that shows that they were shooting in at least 2 other hotels there.
Wow.
And I'm confident there was 5, maybe more.
Wow.
And the reason for all of it is what's kind of behind the scenes that people, I don't think our government and the FBI and others want to share, but there's I could share some other details with you off air, but I'm
Okay.
as a aired broadcast, I'm not prepared to share.
Okay.
May I ask what branch of service?
I was in the Army.
Well, thank you.
Yes,
very much for
absolutely,
your
thank
service.
you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Army Ranger?
I trained with Army Rangers, but I was not one.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually became an officer in the Army. Right after going to basic training, I actually, when I was mentioning my experience in daytime radio, part of what inspired me to serve in the first place is that on my Thursday morning show, I would have members of the DAV and other veterans that would come in and share some of their stories. And I met people like Major Bode and Don Brigg and other guys that were just absolutely amazing people, and some of their stories from Vietnam and even dating back to World War II was just mind-blowing. And I can tell you, I didn't feel like much of an American sitting next to these guys. And so there came a point in which I decided I have 6 brothers and a sister. My sister's the youngest, and she had already entered the military at that time, and I would joke to people that she was the only one man enough among us others, her brothers, to go serve in the military. So I decided, well, at least one of us has to go join MIM. So anyway.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
I know we're supposed to be talking about your radio thing, but I'm kind of interested in the other things because the military, my father, he was an ex-Marine.
Mm-hmm.
And he always spoke of the integrity, the honor code,
Mm-hmm.
the commitment to others. How did you find your experience?
Oh, that component of it was probably one of the most rewarding aspects of the military. I remember the when I first shipped to basic training, and I was in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and on the wall of they call it the Starship, but it was the battalion. There were several companies that were there. I was in Bravo Company, and on the wall was this big mirror that you could see everybody there, but obviously your own reflection. And the sign above it said, "Don't see a winner," and right below it said, "Check back in 10 weeks." And I thought, wow, that is just really cool. And then a little bit further away from the mirror were the Army values: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. And really easy to remember because it's an acronym that, for leadership, LDRSHIP. So loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage.
Very cool.
So it was, I looked at that and I was like, that's something I can embrace, and really, really proud to be a part of it. Having seen that and experienced that, You know, unless you've been in a situation where you served with people in military and, you know, various deployments and things like that, it's hard to, there's no other experience I've had in my life where in some cases you might even say you're around perfect strangers, because sometimes when you're deployed, you run into people or you meet people that are part of your unit that come from other states, other communities, other whatever, and the bonding happens immediate. I mean, it's a very cool experience.
It's awesome.
It's family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, it's an incredible thing. We bring it down to the community level.
Yeah.
You're doing your radio show, so I better bring it back to what you came here to talk about. Attaboy.
Well, I can
That
talk
was a
about
nice little segue.
You know,
Dang, did you practice that at home?
no,
I think you might have.
no,
It
I
sounded
did not.
rehearsed.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
saying.
I'm sorry, not rehearsed, folks.
Two radio guys.
Somebody in the
Two
major
two
networks
radio
gave you
guys.
talking lines, and you did that really well, Ray.
Yeah, where are the networks? I thought they were coming down to see us. Joking.
Next week.
Next week, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I've invited Stephen Colbert.
Yeah,
but,
you did.
You know,
We invited a lot of
it's been
people a
like
couple
5
weeks ago.
Oh, I invite everybody.
He's trying to
I-
just move a couple of things around, and
Yeah,
you'll be here.
he's
soon.
local.
You know, get that butter on the toast. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I didn't have the toast.
I'll give you jelly.
So hey, to
Sorry.
share a few things on the radio side. You
Yes.
guys mentioned that you've actually done this show for a number of years, right?
Yes.
And you started with KLTV, what, 9 years ago?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And took a little bit of time off, and now you're back launching the show. And I can tell you that there is a huge future in online media. That's where I moved, you know, my content to starting in 2000. Well, I was actually already starting to do it in 2009, but went 100% to it like in 2012 or shortly after that time frame. And I now broadcast, my shows are now seen every single day in 220 countries around the world. And
Nice.
I have 12.2 million now we're up to with people that click into our links every single month. So
Aren't we close to
That is
that?
tons.
awesome.
Yeah,
Aren't we just a little below that?
I think we're a little bit
Like
below that.
89, I don't know.
yeah. 8.9 billion or maybe.
No, it was 89.
Oh, 89.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it was 89.
Yeah, so there's a huge future in online media, and I commend you guys for rolling that route.
We're just having fun.
Yeah,
Question for you though. I find myself more involved in radio than I do TV.
right.
And,
I got a face for radio.
well, that's the standard line going back to like
Thank you very much.
1932 or something, but, radio, of all the different media forms,
Mhm.
seems to be the one that sustains itself.
Yeah.
Some of it goes conservative, some of it goes liberal, but there's always an audience for the radio.
Mhm.
Part of it, I believe, is because the way we commute and drive and everything else, we have little time by the TV.
Right.
But there's the imagination of radio. You think of the old shows, like Perry Mason or The Shadow or those. Those were
Mhm.
radio plays.
Yes.
And they actually created you were mentally engaged with it beyond just sound.
Oh, sure.
Is that how you find it?
Yeah, and I can say even, you know, part of my just enjoyment in listening to radio, because I've been a long time radio fan, and that's kind of where, you know, gave me my seed of interest or curiosity even getting to the radio business myself. But I think back to, this actually wasn't radio, but it kind of connects with just enjoying that type of format. When I was in the 6th grade, I still remember my teacher. I don't remember a lot of the teachers I had along the years, but I remember my 6th grade teacher, Mr. Calkins. And he spent about half hour, 45 minutes of every day reading given books in the classroom to the class. And it was just really intriguing, like seeing the visual images, you know, that developed just listening to those books that he was reading. And never forgot the experience and never forgot him as a teacher. And it was like I said, it kind of ties into why people even enjoy radio to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, I got in radio because of listening to it so much, and I thought, well,
You were Dr. Demento.
I wish I had his bank account.
So did you do something locally?
I did. I worked at K-Log and K-Bam.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
So you might have worked in the building, or you did.
I did work in the building, in the basement.
Oh, okay.
I remember I was working a Saturday, which was very abnormal, and I go, yeah, a chance to snow. And someone called me on the phone and says, have you been outside? And we had like 2.5 feet. But in the basement, you couldn't see.
Well, to give you a little background,
It's weird. You probably know the side of the building I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So a little kind of funny story that I actually forgot about when we were kids. My brothers and I, my dad was a ham radio operator.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
and talked to actually people all around the world with that. And when he was gone, we would use his ham radio. We didn't have a license for it, didn't know we needed one or
Oops.
anything. So, but we would run our own radio show on the ham radio while my dad was gone, and we called it KRAP radio.
Nice.
Yes, and our weatherman we had on the show, his name was Whitey Winters, and Whitey would always read a weather report from the National Weather Bureau, and then lean out the window of the studio, which we didn't have, but lean out the window and correct everything he had just said in the last couple of minutes.
That's
So
great.
it was one of our jokes.
What a great line. What a great gig. Yeah, that was good. I like that.
Your broadcasting station, you want to give contact information before I forget that?
Yeah, if somebody wants to reach out to us at the studio, the contact number 360-545-3501, 545-3501. Or you can find us online because I'm broadcasting currently with Northwest Judicial News. It's a news channel that I started here locally. We have a Facebook group, a Facebook page. It's on YouTube as well. And we launched it October 8th this past fall. And between our combined followers on the page and on the group, we're at around 20,000, 21,000, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Wow.
And a couple of stories that we have aired on our YouTube channel. I actually got interview requests from news stations all around the country for permission to air. So we've got some attention around the country with what we've done so far.
That's very cool. That's very cool. See, I told you they're coming for us.
I'm gonna go on
to take you away.
I'm gonna go out on a limb. I've actually said this on our broadcast, I think, before. But one of my goals with Northwest Judicial News, we already have international following in it, and one of my goals is to crack the top 20 largest Facebook groups in the world, which means we'll be 1 million plus to do that. So that's my goal.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
What's your goal for it aside from numbers? What gives you your zest?
It really is a commitment to journalism. I think everybody in this country is seeing, whether you mentioned in radio how there's some liberal programming and there's some conservative programming. How much news do we actually hear these days that doesn't have a spin on it?
I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's pretty dang tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so even earlier when you were asking me about the things around Vegas, I could just tell you everything I know, even the things that I haven't completely verified, and be irresponsible about it.
No,
because that's what all the major news networks do.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why they've gotten themselves into so much trouble this past year, because they're so interested in furthering a political objective that they're not really interested in what the news is. And when you think about the responsibility of journalism, its first loyalty was actually to citizens.
Right.
Okay, its first loyalty is. And it doesn't mean that news doesn't have bias, but a good journalist is capable of doing a report on any given subject, and if it happens to be something political, the listener cannot tell if he's either for or against it.
You're
It's
right.
just the news.
Absolutely.
I have to ask, but who would you say your mentor is in substance as far as what you're doing?
A great example of probably one of the most famous, well-known, well-respected journalists of all time was Paul Harvey. Paul Harvey didn't air a single story without multiple sources and double checking it. And he even shared, he did an interview with Larry King in 2003, and Larry asked him about, his rest of the story and a lot of the other news segments that he did. And Paul said, hey, if there was something going on in, let's say, like just recently, like I'll give you kind of a classic example. The here in the state of Washington, they passed a Hearst fix. Well, we got that information from Representative Walsh, who sent that to us, and I don't have any reason to doubt something he'd send to us. I mean, he's never sent anything to us that wasn't accurate to begin with. But what Paul Harvey does with something like that is he would receive this from Representative Walsh. He'd also then reach out to Representative Blake. He'd get like both sides of the aisle. He might even talk to the Speaker in the House, and then after having done that, then he aired his story. So that's one of the things. Think about
I didn't
this.
know that.
There are
And
600.
now you know the rest of the story.
Yeah. Speaking of the rest of the story, there's over 600 of those.
What, rest of the stories?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And how
yeah.
many journalists do you know in all time who has a minimum of 600 stories that are 100% thoroughly vetted, accurate from beginning to end? Do you know anybody?
No.
Can't name a single person. So
I've got great admiration for your.
Yeah,
I
that's
also,
very cool.
I also love Charles Osgood though.
yeah, the Osgood file, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah,
That's a
another
good
great example. So, but yeah, when just saying that when you talk about the likes of Paul Harvey and Charles Osgood and folks like that, the list gets really short when you go, well, who is like them? And then you start to go, And we take like reporters today that are really well known in the news and are on the news every single day. And if I just threw out like Sean Hannity and Don Lemon, who are from two different sides of the aisle, is there a single story those guys can do without a complete political spin on what it is they're talking about?
No, they always been.
There's not a hope, so.
We won't even bring up Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah, so.
Oh, stop. Tell me you don't listen to him.
I listen to everybody.
It's okay, buddy. Still like
Turning off your ears.
What
doesn't make
you have to remember, though, Phil, is that Rush Limbaugh unapologetically talks about himself and his show as entertainment.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Does.
Yeah,
I
so
totally agree.
People have to understand that when listening to the show, and he
and
does.
he has a huge following.
Yeah,
I mean, he does.
yeah.
Oh,
You like him too?
yes.
Okay.
So there's the interesting thing is that whatever somebody's political alliances are, it doesn't matter if somebody was a Democratic politician or somebody's a Republican politician. There's always a element of what they're speaking of that contains truth and nothing but the truth. And then there's an element of what they're talking about, which is a spin on that. And I'm fully aware of that as a journalist and somebody who loves the truth, loves the facts. So when I hear people who are leaders in given parties and they talk about a member of leadership or whatever in another party and say, this person has been full of crap since day one, I'm going, you're just telling me you don't have the ability to look objectively at that person.
Exactly.
Because
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
that's all they're saying to me. And I'm going, so maybe I shouldn't really believe anything you tell me either, because if you can't look at this person and say, well, 78% of what you're saying is true,
Right.
I just don't like how you're presenting it. Let me share with you I can put this bottle on the table and drink it down halfway. I might say it's half full, you say it's half empty. We're both right. We're just looking at it from a different perspective. And there's a lot of information and even news stories out there that are true in that fashion. And if we as journalists recognize it and recognize that we have a propensity, to maybe only look at things in one given way, well, get somebody else involved who has another perspective.
Right.
When I was a young man in Detroit, Michigan years ago, I was the youngest member of a management team in what people call corporate America. It was Guardian Industries, and Guardian is, I think, the second or third largest manufacturer of glass in the world, and they had 36 plants worldwide. So I'm not on the corporate team, but I'm on one of the management teams in one of Guardian's 36 plants. And you guys have heard the phrase, we need to get on the same page, right?
Right.
So who has, well, anyway, that mentality was preached constantly on this management team that I was on. And so interestingly enough, partway into my experience there, Guardian Corporate, not our local management, but corporate, hired this consultant to come out and work with us to improve our management team. And I didn't know that there was another reason why he was being hired. I just thought, he's a coach who's helping improve our team. Actually, he was there to identify why there was the problem there was in the group. So we have our first meeting. There's 13 of us sitting at the table. And he starts with me, since I'm the whippersnapper on the team, and asks me, Kevin, based on the goals and objectives you see for the facility, what do you see as kind of the mission or the objective of this plant? So I share with him my talking points that have been fed to us from the plant manager. He gets to the next guy and goes around the table, and every person, just like good little soldiers, all sang off the same sheet of music, and it got around to Dave, who was the plant manager, and he just kind of tied everything together neatly in one little package, and then he finishes all by saying, Jim, we're just all on the same page. And the truth was behind the scenes, this team of managers fought like cats and dogs all the time. And, well, Jim, after he lets Dave say this and he gets done, he goes, well, as long as you all think alike, act alike, and talk alike, there's 12 of you at the table not needed.
Wow.
And I was like,
wow.
But what a great learning experience for why those different backgrounds, different opinions, different ideas are not only important, but vital to the success of anything you do. And if you can't, with tolerance and willingness to listen and hear what other people have to say, no matter how crazy you think the idea is, if you can't show some respect for other people and listen to what other people have to say, whether it be a management team, whether it be a broadcast team, whether it be whatever, you got no business being at the table. You need to leave to where open-minded people who come from different walks of life are willing to discuss their ideas openly and honestly and without fighting about it and without disrespecting each other. You think about, we've touched on politics, you can take religion and throw it into that same thing and it's the same fiery conversation, but to give an example of how we ought to behave if we're discussing some subject, I don't know if you guys read, but if you read,
I learned to read a couple of years ago.
Well, I mean, I know you know how to read, but are there any books or any authors that you read in particular that you like? Anything you read over the years that you really like?
What's her name? She was a detective. She lives up in Seattle. She does murder mysteries. I can't think of her name.
Oh, so he likes murder mysteries.
Yes.
What type
True,
of books do you like?
True ones.
Yeah, true ones, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm eclectic because I could go from Edmund Cooper to Isaac Asimov to Asimov. I always say his name wrong.
There you go. And while he was explaining his reading preference, which is different than yours, did you think he was an idiot for saying that?
No.
Because it's like my favorite mysteries are the British ones. It's like, give me Agatha Christie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And so, I like, you can take like Tom Clancy, which is
Tom Clancy.
I love those kinds of
yeah,
books.
I like those.
I love a lot of do-it-yourself, self-help type books too. So leadership books from Carnegie to Ricardo Semler. I don't know if you've ever read the book The Maverick by Ricardo Semler, but really cool book around the completely opposite thinking as it approaches management and business than what you see out there in Western business.
Anything would be better than the 1 Minute Manager series.
Yeah.
Oh my
That
God,
was
were
the
those the worst?
Those were the most shallow things. And
Yeah.
when I was in charge of the Oregon district with Campbell's,
Mm-hmm.
I had to put everyone through that whole program. So-
Yeah.
Oh, you're kidding
And
me.
it felt like so shallow. There was no
Well, they were.
human connection.
Yeah.
It was just like, I see you. This is good. This is bad. My minute's up. Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do that.
So you see the interesting thing, we just talked about different types of reading and different types of books, and none of us thought the other was stupid for thinking. But you could take political issues or religious issues or other kinds of issues and throw them on the table and put 3-4 smart people around there, and unless they're all in the same party or in the same church or in the same whatever, they'll be hating each other by the time the evening's over. in just general society. And that's what I'm saying, where we need to get as a community, as a population, as whatever, where we can actually sit around the book or sit around the table, discuss any subject, just like we talked about books a minute ago, and not think any less of each other because of our own preferences or ideas.
Well, because everyone has opinion on something, and they're free to state it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's America.
We are out of time here, Phil.
Oh, yeah, we are.
Kevin, you want to add anything as far as
Do
the radio
your
thing?
final pitch, man. Make
Yeah.
it good. Make it sound good.
Well, I do have my own URL with YouTube. You can go to YouTube/Kevin Hunter, find a lot of content that I have that airs all around the world. Find us online, Northwest Digital News on Facebook and YouTube. And if you have any questions for me, you can call or text to 360-545-3501. Or you can also email at kevin@northwestdigitalnews.com. So
Would you come back sometime?
I'd be glad to come back, yeah.
But
Thanks, man.
I don't want to sound
Appreciate
bad,
that.
but I listen to Lars Larson and everything. I'm a progressive
Lars.
liberal.
Yep.
Okay, I
Yep.
freely
Yeah.
admit that,
I-
but I listen to everything because
Yeah.
I need to have
Well, you got to have the whole
the balance. The
conversation.
coin has two sides.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you're better than Lars.
Thank you.
So,
Wow.
and Lars, if you want to challenge
But
me,
yeah, Lars,
come to our show.
Come to the show, Lars.
I'm sure Lars
Yeah.
is watching right now.
Yep. Hey, Lars, dial it up.
Wow, right. Wow. High standards.
Hey,
Anyway,
stare by the grace of God go I.
Anyway, that sounds like a good thing to end the show on. And I'm going to definitely check you out. I mean,
Thank you.
Check
Oh,
you
yeah.
out, but check out your content.
Thank you so much.
And-
Yeah, I appreciate the
uh,
opportunity.
How exciting that's happening here.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what I think is really cool, that it's happening here in Longview.
And by the way, there's another squirrel event happening and some other town has copied us.
No way.
Yes, and I'm
Oh.
waiting for the final details on it,
We're going to have to crash that.
It won't be as nutty as ours.
It wa-
but that part's true.
We talked about Squirrel Fest in our
It
second
was on
show.
national radio when I was on my way here.
They're having a Squirrel Fest.
There's some kind of squirrel event that was happening today. And it's.
Oh, it's today.
Back to
Wow.
these. Well, I know, but I want to find out who's copying this because, hey, we're worthy of copying.
We
but
are the
we
Squirrel
have
Fest
copyright.
capital.
Copying is actually the finest form of flattery.
It is,
Yes, it
absolutely, absolutely it is. Anyway, wow, great information. I learned a lot tonight.
I did too.
And like I said, we'd love to have you back. And
Anytime.
good luck, man. You
Thank
sounds
you.
like you got things going on pretty good.
Thank you.
I'm impressed.
Check it out. Laurel, sign us off.
Sign us off. We're out of here.
And Phil's the guest next week.
Well, thank you,
I
Kevin
am.
Hunter, for coming. You were awesome.
Thank you.
Yes.
You were even better than Howard Stern.
Oh my gosh.
We have different subject matter.
I think that's a compliment.
Yeah, we have different
I think
subject
that's a
matter.
compliment.
Okay.
All right, Feet on the Street. Did another show. Awesome show. Thank you again, Kevin. Thank you, everyone that helps us get this together. And we'll see you next Tuesday.
See you
Bye.
next week. Bye.
Peace.
Hang loose.
I was saving that for Clay. Oh, we're still on the air.
I don't know.
I think we're still on the air. I'm glad I